Hello Year 5 and welcome to your reading lesson. How did you get on yesterday doing the independent task? I only gave you 2 pages. Hopefully you've read those 2 pages and you're up to speed for our new chapter we're going to be looking at today. So we're going to be looking at inferring meaning through alternative word style questions. There's going to be a lot of synonym based work, which is a little bit like the lesson we did last week. But instead of identifying synonyms, we're looking for alternative understanding of a phrase that's slightly different or written in a slightly different way but means the same thing. So we're going to identify the rich vocabulary like we always do. So we're going to pick up on some vocabulary and see how that works with synonyms and antonyms and where it fits into our story. You're then going to use your knowledge of synonyms to be able to identify alternative meaning, within a phrase. So if I gave you one phrase that might suggest one thing, you need to find another phrase that means the same, but obviously it's going to be worded slightly differently. And then you're going to have a go at answering some of those types of questions on your own. So let's have a look at our first piece of vocabulary for today. So on page 64, it says rain had long ago eroded the castle walls. So the word we're looking at is eroded. Now because of our suffix ed, this is a past tense word. So when we erode something, it's a verb, it's something we do. So it's 3 syllables, eroded, and it means to gradually wear away. Now my example here says the white needles of the Isle of Wight have been eroded by the sea. Now you may not know the needles, but the Isle of Wight obviously is the teeny tiny little island that's off the south coast of England. And right on the south coast of the Isle of Wight, it has these teeny tiny little parts, and they're called the needles because they stick out like little points. And there used to be 5 or 6 of the needles that used to come right off the edge of the Isle of Wight. But over time, these needles have been eroded away, so through storms and through the weather, each one of those has actually fallen and disintegrated into nothing. And I think there's only about 3 or 4 of them that are actually left. So when something's eroded, it means to gradually wear away. And those needles on the south coast of the Isle of Wight have definitely gradually worn away. They've just started to disappear. So another example for that would be if something crumbled or corroded or wasted away. So obviously these cliff edges along here as well, these will eventually start eroding away as well because that lapping of the sea and the wind will take teeny tiny bits of it off every single time. Now the opposite of that would be to preserve something or to keep something or maintain something as it is. So there'll be no change. It's not going to disappear gradually or wear away. It's going to stay the same as it is. So that's one of the words we're going to look at today is eroded, and it's going to be describing our castle walls. So obviously rain had long ago eroded the castle walls, telling me there's not many castle walls left. That rain has slowly just disintegrated and pulled that wall to pieces to the point where there's no wall left. A bit like the needles. Now, one of the other words we're looking at, page 66, we're introduced to Nettlebrand. I wonder if you guys know who Nettlebrand is. Now, Nettlebrand, disgruntled, watched him. Now disgruntled is the word we're going to look at. This is an adjective. So this is describing almost how he's doing something, or how he is. So he is disgruntled. Disgruntled means to be angry or dissatisfied by something. So you're not happy about something. Now it's 3 syllables, disgruntled. Now if I put it into another sentence for you, the cashier had to deal with a rather disgruntled customer. So imagine a customer's rocked up at the shop and wants to exchange something, but they've not brought their receipt back. And the cashier says, well, I'm very sorry, but unfortunately we can't return anything unless you have a proof of receipt. And the customer gets very angry, very cross, very irritable, because their situation or problem isn't being dealt with. And they've got a whole host of reasons and other things to explain why they're there. So it means to be annoyed, could be angry, could be irritated. So it describes the way someone is being, their personality or the way they feel. Now, the opposite of that would be to be quite content, to be happy, to be satisfied. You're a happy customer, you're a content customer, got no issues whatsoever. But here, Nettlebrand is disgruntled by something. And we'll see if you know who Nettlebrand is when we move into chapter 9. So, same as always, you want to pause the video and read it on your own, by all means. If not, I am going to read the chapter. So, chapter 9, Nettlebrand, the Golden One. Now, we were given a warning about the Golden One. Was it a good or a negative warning? Oh, it's a negative one, isn't it? We can't have a good warning. So we're now about to be introduced by a character that we've been warned about from the beginning of the book. So things might start to change course. The dwarves were right. The castle near the place where Firedrake had landed by mistake was a sinister spot. So a bit of a dark, bit of an eerie spot. and far more dangerous for a silver dragon than for a few mountain dwarfs. Its occupants, the person that lived there, took no more interest in dwarves than he did in spiders or flies. He had been waiting for a dragon for over 150 years. Rain had long ago eroded the castle walls. The towers were in ruins, the stairways overgrown with thistles and thorn bushes. But that didn't bother the castle's owner. His armour was proof against rain, cold, and wind. So the fact the castle's eroded and everything's overgrown or fallen down tells me he's been there a long time. But in actual fact, he's been there more than 150 years because he's waited for another dragon. Nettlebrand, the golden one, lay in the deep, damp vaults far underground, longing for the return of the good years when the castle roof was intact, so all together in one piece, and he had enjoyed himself chasing the only prey he liked to hunt, silver dragons. Well, now I get the impression that he's also the dragon as well, because he mentioned about having his own scales and his armour being, proof from weather. But it doesn't actually say here that he's a dragon, so it's odd that he might be hunting other dragons if he is one, but let's find out what he is. Nettlebrand's own scale still shone like pure gold. His claws were sharper than splinters of glass. His teeth had a keen cutting edge, and he was mightier than any other living creature. Well, it says that Nettlebrand's own scales, so to me that suggests that he's referring to himself as a dragon as well. So now we've got a dragon hunting another dragon, but specifically silver dragons. Who do we know who's a silver dragon? Fire Drake. So things could start to get a little bit creepy. But he was bored, consumed by boredom. It made him wild and savage, more ferocious than a chained dog, and so bad-tempered that he had long ago eaten most of his servants. Charming. Only one of them was left, a spindly little mannequin called Twigleg. Day in, day out, he polished Nettlebrand's armour, dusted the spines on his back, cleaned his gleaming teeth, and sharpened his claws. Day after day, from sunrise to sunset, Twigleg worked while the golden dragon lay in his ruined castle, hoping one of his countless spies would bring him the news he'd been waiting for so long. News of the last dragon so that he could go hunting again. It says countless spies. I wonder who his spies are, because we were warned about him by our Gilbert, Mr. Gilbert. On the morning when Firedrake was sleeping among the rocks, only a few mountain peaks away, 2 spies had already come back. One of Nettlebrand's ravens from the north and a will-o'-the-wisp from the south. But they had nothing to tell him. Nothing at all. Only silly stories about a couple of trolls here, a few fairies there, a sea serpent and a gigantic bird. Nothing about dragons. Not a word. So Nettlebrand ate them for breakfast, even though he knew that raven feathers always gave him terrible indigestion. Yeah, now I'm starting to wonder why he might not have very many spies left, because if they don't come back with good news, he clearly thinks, well, you're useless to me, so I'm going to eat you. So I'm quite glad that I'm not one of his spies. He was in a shocking temper when Twigleg, armed with cleaning cloths and brushes, bowed low before him. As usual, the mannequin clambered up to Nettlebrand's huge body to polish the golden scales of his master's armour from head to tail. Careful, you bone-brained homunculus! Nettlebrand spat at him. Ouch! Don't tread on my stomach, for goodness sake! Why didn't you stop me eating that wretched black bird? You wouldn't have listened to me, master, replied Twigleg. Picking up a green bottle, he poured into a bucket of water some of the polish specially made by the mountain dwarfs for his master's scaly armour. The polish was the secret of buffing the scales to such a shine that he could see his reflection in them. Correct, growled Nettlebrand. Twigleg dipped his cloth into the bucket and set to work. But when he had cleaned only 3 of the scales, his master groaned and turned over. Twigleg's bucket fell off and landed on the ground. That will do, bellowed Nettlebrand. You can leave the polishing for today. It makes my stomach ache worse. Get on with sharpening my claws. And he blew Twigleg off his back with an icy breath. The little creature tumbled head first to the cracked flagstones of the castle floor. Without a word, he picked himself up again, took a file from his belt, and got to work on the dragon's black claws. It doesn't sound like to me he gets treated particularly well, because he's quite literally been thrown and pushed around. So at some point, I've nothing to say he's not eaten him yet, but I'm wondering why he's still got him around. Nettlebrown, disgruntled, watched him. Okay, so disgruntled, so he's angry now, he's irritated. Come on, tell me something, he growled. Tell me about my heroic deeds of old. Oh, no, not that again, muttered Twigleg. What did you say? Growled Nettlebrand. Oh, nothing, replied Twigleg hastily. Right, master, just a moment. How did it go? Oh, yes. The mannequin cleared his throat. One cold, moonless winter night in the year 1423. 1424, snarled Nettlebrown. How often do I have to tell you, Beetlebrain? He struck out angrily at the little man, but Twigleg nimbly avoided him. One cold, moonless winter night in the year 1424, he began again, the famous alchemist, Petrosius Henbane, created the greatest marvel the world had ever seen, the mightiest being, the mightiest and most dangerous being. Nettlebrand interrupted. Get it right, can't you? Or I'll bite your spidery legs. Carry on. The mightiest and most dangerous being, Twigleg obediently recited, ever to set a claw on this earth. He made it from a creature whose name no one knows, and he added fire and water, gold and iron, hard stone, and the dew that falls on the leaves of Lady's mantle. Now I'm going to pause it there because I don't want to finish off that next sentence. So we get a little bit of an idea about how and where this creature, Nettlebrand, might have been created. Now he's clearly got a temper. He's not a very nice person. Okay, but he might be in luck soon when Firedrake, Ben and Sorrel, knowing that they're not very far away. So we'll see what happens in the rest of the story tomorrow.